I think we start. Are we set?
Set.
Okay.
We would be closing at now it is 3:15. 4:15.
4:50. Sounds good. Thank you. Okay. Good afternoon, guys. I am Aditya Navin, and with me is my colleague Gulsher Singh.
Hey guys.
Both of us are from our product managers from Tiny Mogul Games, and today we'll be talking to you about the importance of numbers for games and how it helps you design a better game. So Gulsher will be joining us in a while.
I'll see you guys.
So let's get started. Let's start off with some introductions. Who are we? We are Tiny Mogul Games, a studio based out of Bangalore, and we are predominantly into the mobile space. We make mobile games. We have already worked on 4 games. 3 of them are out there on the Google Play Market and the Android App Store, and the 4th one is about to come out. I'll quickly take you through the games. The very first game we released was called Song Quest. This was a casual music trivia game. The second game we had was called Shiva the Time Bender, a classic 2D side-scroller arcade and action game. The third game we released was Magic Temple. Now this is a game which we released in conjunction with another studio. This was a studio based out of Singapore, and we helped them publish the game in India. This is our take on the puzzle genre. And the 4th game which is about to come out is Street Chaser. This is a twist on the standard runner game where rather than running endlessly, you actually play a bounty hunter who's chasing down thugs and trying to rid a town of its evil. So we're pretty excited about this as well. So those are the 4 games we have. So let's get started with the talk. The agenda of the date. So running a product successfully is a huge responsibility. You need to make a constant set of iterations and improvements to eventually end up with a really, really beautiful product. But to get those iterations and improvements, you need to be able to measure relevant metrics within the game. Now this is important. And once you have those set of metrics readily available, then you sort of go ahead and do a bunch of analysis on them, make more informed decisions about what features are working, what isn't, what needs to be surfaced, what can be removed. And based on these decisions, you then go ahead and iterate and bring out a better version of the product. And so on and so forth. The cycle continues. So what we want for you to get from this talk is essentially, rather than reinventing the wheel, we have a bunch of third-party existing tools out there which can help you sort of through the cycle. So why not try using those? But external tools will never really get you every metric which you require for the game. So what we went ahead and did is we invested some time into making our own tools which could sort of help plug the gaps in between. And finally, we will talk about automation. So eventually, your game should be at a level where a single guy, the product manager in this case, can run the entire game, including the content, the features, and so on, with minimal help from the engineers and designers and so on. So that is what we'll be talking about today. Since this is a date, I think we should keep this a little interesting. And the best way to do this is by getting a point across through stories. And that is what we'll be doing today. So the very first story we have for you today, it's called Made in India, Stolen in China. And this happened with our game Shiva the Time Bender. So on August of 20th, after months of hard work, we finally released Shiva the Time Bender on the Google Play Store. Now this was a big moment for all of us. This was the second game which we had released as a studio. Day 1. The game got released. We had a bunch of installs, mostly family, friends, people who we spammed and pestered to play the game, so on and so forth. So a small number of installs as expected. Day 2. So our game got noticed by a couple of bloggers, app reviewers. So we had a bunch of articles on the online space, and that translated into a certain set of installs, which again explains the rise in the installs over there. So expected. Before I go ahead, I just have to make a small point over here that for the first 5 days, we had no intention of going ahead with paid advertising. We didn't want to go do any marketing as such. We just wanted to take a step back and make sure that the game was working perfectly, the reception was good before actually going ahead with a marketing spend. So day 3. Now this was an interesting day for us. I remember walking into office that morning, I'm opening my laptop, I run the report, and then I see this. Awesome. We got a huge number of installs within the 3rd day, which is brilliant. But what was bothering us was, what exactly did we do to get these installs on the game? I mean, we really couldn't explain what is happening over here. And this effectively got worse because the next day we saw a lot more installs coming in. Again, we had no idea what is happening here. Now, me being the product manager of the game, it fell on to me to really try and figure out what is happening here to explain this really, really weird behavior. So the very first thing I did was sit down, take some time, and figure out who to blame it on. Yep, it's always those aliens. But seriously, luckily we had the foresight while we were making the app to integrate with a third-party tool which would help us with traffic source analytics. Now, what is traffic source analytics? It essentially lets you break down your users by where they came and downloaded the app from. As simple as that. So eventually, down the line, if you ever want to get into advertising, you have to use this because that tells you which networks your users came from. And it will also sort of, and that is useful in a different way, which Gulsher will be covering later. But for now, we had Google Analytics as our traffic source analytics tool. And what that helped us do is break down the installs into this interesting graph. So the blue area over here is the people coming to our app from Google Play. It doesn't really explain the rise in installs for those 3 days. So, okay, that's not it. However, we had a weird green bar over here, which Google Analytics told us was essentially people downloading our app from random Chinese app stores. Now, Google Play is not very famous in China, and Chinese users tend to get their games from different app markets. So what was happening was someone had actually taken our app from Google Play and had uploaded it there without a permission, which is fine. We are completely fine with this. The more number of people playing a game, the better. We were actually pleasantly surprised about this. That's good. But that still doesn't explain this huge area of red over here and where these people are coming from. So I'm guessing a lot of you might have guessed by now what this could be. We eventually came to the unpleasant conclusion that our game was pirated. And this came as a big shock to us because we really weren't expecting it. This was our 2nd game, and the game was free, so we really didn't know what was going on over here. Whether it was good or bad was a different thing completely. But we did get into a debate about, now that we know the game is pirated, is that a good thing or a bad thing? So here's what happened. The game was reaching out to a lot of users who otherwise wouldn't have really come and played a game. This was good. The more the number of people playing a game and trying it out, we are happy with it. No complaints at all. Good for us. However, there was the fact that if these people had come to our game through the Google Play Store, mind you, this is a free game, by the way. So if they had come to our app through the Google Play Store, that could have shot us up in the rankings and we would have easily reached the top 10. That was a disappointment, but that's still something we can live with. It's not that much of a deal for us. So then what happened was one of our team members went ahead, found the store site, installed the game from there, started playing it, and immediately the colors drained from our faces. It was a big, big setback for all of us. So what we noticed was the hacked version of the game was giving out billions of orbs for free to the users. Now, orbs are what drive the economy in Shiva. You do your run, you collect orbs through that, and once you've collected enough orbs, you sort of use those orbs to buy customizations, or you buy upgrades and boosts, and that helps you lengthen your run, improve your gameplay, and so on and so forth. So orbs not only drive the economy, but the gameplay as well. And the problem here was, now that our economy is disrupted, so was the gameplay. So what we began noticing was there were users who were coming in, taking this version of the game, they open the game, they buy everything they have to in one session itself, have a long run, and then never come back to the game. Our quality of users had dropped considerably. Our retention numbers were very, very low, and this was a little worrying. What was even more worrying, and this was the final nail on the coffin, is the fact that, so to actually make the gameplay experience better for the users, for our actual Google Play users, we need some insights into how they are interacting with the features. And that comes with the metrics and the data we are collecting. However, in this case, what was happening was we had tainted data because there were users coming in and buying everything in one go and leaving the game. So we had no idea if the game was difficult, if it was too easy, if we were giving enough coins, so on and so forth. At this point, we should have technically given up. But what came to rescue again was the traffic source analytics app we had. So Google Analytics also let us break down users into which country they're coming from. And what we noticed was that about 96% of our users, the hacked version users, were from China. So all we had to do was exclude these people from the data set, and we had a clean set of data which we could sort of use to make improvements on and make decisions on for the betterment of the game. So luckily for us, we had a traffic source analytics integrated while we were making the game. So as I said, the moral of the story, traffic source analytics, very, very essential. Don't leave home without it. As simple as that. So that was the first story. The second story I have for you today, it's called the A's and B's of change. And let's get right to it. So this is another example from our game Shiva the Time Bender. This is what our marketplace screen looks like. So so the thing is, a lot of designers face this problem when they were trying to design a marketplace screen. And the problem is you have a list of items, customizations, upgrades, power-ups, so on and so forth, which you have to show in this single screen. How do you show this in such a way that everything is visible, everything is equally surfaced, so on and so forth? And this is a problem which we all face with. So while designing the game, what we decided to go ahead with was a scrollable list. So this is how it works for our game. So you have Shiva over here, the central character. You have the customizations, which are cosmetic in nature, purely cosmetic, don't affect the gameplay. But the customizations are on your left, and you have the power-ups and boosts on your right. So what we did was, upon scrolling, so if you scroll on the left, you go from armors to hair color to so on and so forth, and eventually weapon skins. So that's the guns out here. And if you scroll on the right, you go from boosts to upgrades, which are over here. So that is how we had designed the marketplace screen for Shiva. Now here's where we notice a problem. So what I wanted to do was to check and see which items were being bought by the users the most. So I decided to look at the customizations, the purely cosmetic ones, and see what items were bought the most. Here's how it looked like. So the very first thing the user sees, which is the armor, 40% of the purchases made were made for this particular item. And this really weird pattern is followed throughout. So the second thing the user sees, which is the hair color, was bought the second most, so on and so forth till the last item. So essentially what the user was seeing first is what he bought the most. The other items were not bought as much. Maybe people didn't know they were there, maybe they weren't scrolling enough, whatever the case was. Now this is worrying because you want users to interact with all the items in your app. You don't want certain features to go to waste. What we wanted to do in this case, as a start, was to see, can we improve the number of purchases made by simply reordering the items in the marketplace screen? Will that make a difference in the purchases made? This seems like a trivial change. However, a change of this magnitude would require valuable engineering resource and time. Now, working in a startup, the engineers are very, very valuable. They can be working on multiple things at a time. They could be making a new game completely, rather than sitting and doing something like this, which is, and it doesn't really have to make a change in the game. the behavior of the users could probably go downhill with the order which we suggest. Once the engineers have done the work and they've brought out a build, you have to go through a couple of days of QA testing to make sure that no new bugs are cropped up. There's no problem in the game, everything is working fine. And once you're done with this, you finally push out an update on the Android store. And if you do this too many times on the Android store, you might end up pissing your users off. So you have to avoid this. All these things just for a simple matter of reordering items. This is not a good thing to do, because the order which I think might be right might come after successive iterations. I'm not really sure what will work, what won't. I might have to revert back to the initial change I had. But what if you could do all of this in just 5 minutes? And here is where A/B testing and variable changes on the fly comes into picture. Again, we have the foresight to integrate a tool which would help us with the A/B testing part of it. Again, I'm talking about the mobile space. A/B testing is rampant in the online space, but on the mobile space, not so much. What we used in this case was a tool called LeanPlum, another third-party existing tool out there. So what LeanPlum let us do is the A/B testing and variable changes. So going back to the example I had of reordering items, here is what happened. It seems pretty complicated, but it's actually very straightforward. We set our target users, the users who would get to see the experiment. Once that was done, we broke down the user base into different groups. So our control base got to see the order of items as they were, no change at all. The customizations group got to see the weapons on top, the armors below, and the upgrades group got to see the upgrades on top and the boosts below. Small changes, and what we did was then go ahead and look at how their behavior was. Did they make more purchases? Did they make more upgrades? So on and so forth. Of course, the most important part of this is the variable change. So what we had over here was a variable called store list, which we had integrated with the app while making the app at that time. So not only does LeanPlum let you change a small variable value, but in this case, it is also changing an entire list. So this list contains the item name, item value in coins, the item order, so on and so forth. So all I had to do was sit on my laptop, reorder the items, plug them in, 5 minutes, my job is done. It's as simple as that, without pushing out an update. And that is very, very crucial in case you are stuck between two designs and you're not sure which one is more important. The variable changing can also be used to tweak values which while making assumptions. So while you're making a game, you're not really sure if you're giving out too many coins or you're giving too few coins to the user and they find it too difficult or too hard. So tweaking these values on the fly without pushing out an update can actually be very, very useful. And that essentially helps you make this entire circle of measuring, analyzing to iteration very, very easy without resorting to push out an update. And all of this within 5 minutes by a single person. Minimal help from the developers and designers and so on and so forth. And that's the takeaway. It makes life easier for everyone, and it gives you a lot more flexibility in terms of rolling out content, bringing on new features, so on and so forth. So that was it for the external tools part. Now Gulsher is going to take over for the rest of the presentation. So
thanks, Adi, and hey guys. So all this while, we have been talking about external tools that make our life, kind of better and easier. And if there is a solution out there, it's always nice that you don't reinvent the wheel rather. So as on a date, imagine how dates happen, right? Your friends normally set you up. They give you some high-level information about your date and tell, okay, these are the likings of that person, these are the dislikings of that person. And what you do is but what if you're trying to answer this particular question? Is this person the one for us? Is this the person I want to get along with in the near future? So in that case, it's not an easy answer to give, right? So what you need to do is spend some more time with that person, get to know them better. So in the parallel lines, we want you to know our product inside out, all the activities and events that are happening inside. And we decided to set up a in-house analytics and start system. So the next couple of stories that we'll talk about revolves around the in-house stats and analytics system that we set up. So this particular example is from our first game called Song Quest, which essentially is a music trivia game where you can, play all sorts of albums ranging from different eras, different artists, different languages. And you also get an opportunity to challenge your friends. And if you're lucky, you get to unlock these quirky looking badges. And they're really fun. Like if you recognize on the left, you have Songmaster Gogo. And on the right, you have a person with a 2.5 kg hand. And he's also capable of uprooting, a lot of hand pumps if you have seen Gadar. Okay, anyway, sorry for that distraction here. So challenges. Challenges are actually a very important part of SongQuest because this makes our game social. This helps propagate the game. And inside SongQuest, we have placed a lot of funnels that track events step by step. And what funnels help us with is that they tell us that exactly where the drop-offs are happening. Right? So just to set the context, like how challenges work, I'll just take you through this graph. So the first thing you do is you just choose an album and you load that album. Right? And you can see here not much drop-offs are happening here. Like roughly if there are 100 people loading the album, around 99% of the people are getting through. Then you get to answer some simple 5 questions that forms the core gameplay of the game. And you can again see there are no major drop-offs here happening. And then you reach the consolidation screen that essentially is your report card. How well did you play? How many correct answers did you have? How much time did you take to answer those questions? And this looks fine. And then you're given a chance to enter something called multi-friend selector screen where you'll see this. And you're like, oh my God, what's happening here? This graph is really heading south. But to be honest, rather than being worried, we were more confused because at this point of time, we didn't have any benchmark to compare these things to because we didn't have any idea as to if this number or this drop is bad or good. But anyway, as I mentioned, that challenges form a very, very crucial and integral part of SongQuest. We thought it's worth a try to make this thing better. So the entire pod sat down. We're a small family. The entire pod just sat down and we started brainstorming from a point of view of a user. So this is how our ancient multi-friend selector screen looked like. Just for the convenience, I'll mention it as MFS from here on. So I would like to point out some 4 important aspects in the screen. One is the design element itself. The other thing is the random players you see here that you can challenge, complete strangers. And then next are the Facebook friends you can challenge. And these set of 2 buttons that either, that decides the fate, that you can either skip the challenges or you can send the challenges. Now we started wondering, from a point of view of a user's POV, right? So he's wondering what's happening there. So coming to the design element part, what we, came to the conclusion was that this